Welcome to Indiana Children Nature Network. We've got another webinar tonight. This is about apps and technology to get outside, particularly children and families, and perhaps this may have some applicability for early childhood facilitators as well. So my name is Carla Gull. I am the state coordinator for Indiana Children Nature Network. We're glad to have you here. I am starting a new job with Mary Lee Environmental Learning Center. I will be the director of the Masters of Arts of Environmental Education and also an associate professor of sustainability environmental education. So I'm excited about that and working in different roles with that as well. Indiana Children Nature Network is part of Environmental Educators Association of Indiana. We've got state-specific resources to help people get outside. Our children, parents, families, community members, and educators. That's all part of it. A few things that we have as part of this is the Nature Play Days coming up June 2nd through 12th. 2023. We've got a map with places around the state that are hosting Nature Play Days. I also encourage you all to host a Nature Play Day as well. You may find that there's something that you may enjoy. And it's also has many applicabilities to all kinds of sites and such. It doesn't have to just be a park or any of those kinds of things. I've hosted them on at a First Friday kind of event on the road that was closed off for the evening to share with our community as well. We do have a recorded webinar about hosting Nature Play Days, as well as like host resource packets and stuff like that, if that is helpful for you. We also have an initiative, I Can Play 30, just kind of taking a pledge to play outside for at least 30 minutes every day. And with that, we also host a quarterly chat about suggestions for the different seasons, as well as a book group where we discuss different book. Our next one is in June. I will share that at the end of our time together, and we're looking at the book Beyond Ecophobia. We'll also share some articles and such that are shorter to read with that as well. We've also got stuff around nature-based early childhood educators and things. We just had an event touring a bunch of different locations in between Noblesville, Fishers and Indianapolis. It was really neat to see a lot of different programs and types of programs. One of them was on a scout camp, and they served elementary and middle school students as well. So kind of neat to see a whole wide range of options for education. As far as the mission of ICAN, pretty much we're here to just encourage people, foster those connections with the natural environment and getting those benefits of it, such as physical, emotional, intellectual benefits, and building that lifelong love of nature. So we raise awareness, we promote that unstructured play and time outdoors, and then also engage in a diverse network of people and such. So glad to have you all here with us. Okay, like I mentioned, the I Can Play 30. And as I mentioned earlier, we do have those seasonal times to get together for that. And it's also a great way to network with others. If you haven't signed up for the newsletter yet, you may want to go ahead and do that on the ICAN website, and that will give you updates when that is. Also, our Facebook page is pretty active as far as having those dates available and such as well. So technology and nature, do those even fit? Some people would call it an oxymoron, that we should just be using nature. And I would say that our reality of children is that even our 18-month-olds know how to swipe. They know how to use the devices and such, and technology is going to be part of their futures, and it is a part of their current lives. So are there opportunities to connect nature and technology so that perhaps we can use technology as a bridge to spend more time outside and or as a tool while we're there? These are just a few suggestions that I have around technology and nature in general. And I use this with my children as well, but using technology as a tool, it's not to supplant direct experiences. We still need those hands-on experiences, but technology can be used as a tool in lots of different ways. And I always tell my children that they can have more time on technology if it's being used as a tool instead of just consuming it. So technology can also be very motivating. So there's a lot of interest in that, and children will often do something for some technology time. And we may even have technology as time after getting outside and such. And then also gamification. So taking something that's kind of part of our everyday lives and making it into a game. That's one way to get kids off the couch. So there are all kinds of different ways to gamify education, learning, physical things, stress relievers, etc. And I know I've done some research studies on this, and it's just kind of interesting to see how if we make a game of something, it gets a little bit easier to do it. I know personally for me, like with my Apple Watch, that I get to close my circles every day. This is a very simple example, but that motivation of closing my circles every day and meeting that goal is one way that is gamified and helps me at least get moving. I should try to make those 30 minutes outside every day as part of that as well. And I'll share some other ways that I get outside with technology as well. And like I mentioned before, technology is going to be part of our children's future. How do we help them find that balance with the outdoors? And I would say that for some children, it can, or adults, it can be that hook to get people outside. I don't know if you've heard of Pokemon Go. I noticed when that came out several years ago, just how excited people were about it. And I know people that still play it. And it's getting people outside and exploring. And can we hook that somewhere into our local flora and fauna as well? And I noticed that my children look at Pokemon and then they see all of the different connections to real life animals and such with that too. So just options there. And then also, we just need to realize when we need to turn the technology off and just enjoy being outside. I know sometimes we're in this, where we're taking pictures with our phones all the time, but sometimes just turning it off and not taking pictures, but just savoring the moment is really important as part of that. So I did want to share that a lot of the information from this is from this document, Digital Technology's Role in Connecting Children and Adults to Nature and the Outdoors. And this is by the National Wildlife Federation by Kevin Coyle, I believe. And he shared a few different things in the research that he shared around aspects that may be important. So this is just one aspect that he shared about outdoor green time and how it can help children in particular. And he shared that it can give children stronger bones. They often have trimmer and healthier children, improved eyesight, fewer need for glasses, like I have in my old age here. And there's a lot of studies around myopia, and when we're outside and looking at that bigger vista, we're not as nearsighted as, I guess. Less depression and hyperactivity. They have a space to get some of that out, and just nature in general helps with stress and depression. Longer attention spans. I see some children that just get very fixated on something that they are doing in the outdoors, and their focus can be very long. And whereas they're looking at a worksheet and it's nothing like that. Oftentimes they're better at making friends as they spend time collaborating and working together with things. See a lot of creativity with that as well, less acting out at home and school. And oftentimes you're seeing better grades measurably at school, and eventually a longer lifespan and healthier adult life. So if we have active lives instead of more sedentary ones on electronics, adults have a 3-year longer lifespan. Or we could look at the other way, people who have a more sedentary life have 3 years less. So there are some guidelines for technology use from the American Academy of Pediatricians that he had shared in this. This is from 2015. I would say it still applies, and with all of technology, we need to keep ourselves updated in what's going on. I know that a lot of the apps and such that had been suggested from this no longer are working. And so we need to be aware of what's no longer being supported and continue watching for new ones that will come up. And I'll share some suggestions of ways that apps could be part of this. So it is fine to have limits at every age, even for us adults. I know I put on my phone, app limits for like my social media, so it alerts me when I've spent a certain amount of time on it with our teens and such on their own devices. We can set limits and time periods and such as well. They also suggest avoiding displacement. We should avoid just giving children a device to keep them busy or occupied. We need to make sure that there's still time for play and creativity, and we're not just allowing technology to fill the time. Addressing digital etiquette. I don't know about you, but on social media, people are not very nice sometimes. And so making sure that we're reiterating with our children just the appropriate ways of interacting online. And also with that, making sure that they are not giving out privacy related information would be good as well. Then also engage in using digital media together. So sometimes that can help bring us together when we're using it together. And then have media-free zones at times. I know I like the dinner table to not have technology at it unless we're using it to like schedule and plan our calendar for the week or whatever, since we do use that as a tool. But we're not just all sitting there scrolling on a device, but we've got some areas where we're not using it. And then also model appropriate media behavior. And it's hard to ask our children to do something if we're on our devices all the time as well. So yeah, we can take our own advice with that. I did want to share this too. It was actually from the Office of Educational Technology from the United States. And they had 4 guiding principles for technology with early learners. And one of them was kind of that concept of it being a tool. So technology, when it's being used appropriately, can be a great tool for learning. And another one, technology should be used to increase access to learning opportunities for all children. So that's actually kind of really exciting. Not all children may be able to visit the ocean, but they can visit the ocean virtually, and they can learn about some of those things through that. Of course, we should be looking as place-based as we can. And then as we learn more about our local place, we can start adding on and learning more from other areas. And then guiding principle 3, that technology that is there should be used to strengthen relationships among parents, families, the early educators, and young children. And I'll share some apps that some early childhood educators use to have those homeschool connections with that as well. And look forward to hearing your suggestions with that too. And then guiding principle 4, technology is more effective for learning when adults and peers interact or co-view with young children. It's not just a here, go do this, but it's something we're doing together. So yeah, I appreciate those suggestions as we think about it. And then also want to share these suggestions from the article. I don't know if there are apps really out there like this that include all of these aspects, but these are design guidelines for apps to connect to nature. So they should be activating the senses and exposing children to natural beauty that's all around them. This may be a big ask for all of them. A focus on animals and nature. I know when I've had apps of animal sounds, that was always very intriguing to younger children. Create perceptions of nature safety. It's not going to hurt us or let's see, perceptions of nature safety. I have this in my mind. So like weather and natural disasters, the app isn't there to scare us, but to help us see how we can be safe in nature. Encourage physical activity. And actually there are additional benefits to being active outside beyond just the physical. So that's really actually kind of a twofer, a bonus there. And then foster those nature adventure scenarios. There is an app that I'll be sharing that does have some like challenges that you can go try and do. So, you know, trying to investigate about nature around us. Also, it can help connect our social groups, whether siblings or families or neighborhood kids and some of those things. It can also have roles for caregivers, and that could be an educator or a parent or a community member as well. And then also protect equipment outdoors. So within this kind of longer, probably like 81 pages or so, article study, I guess you could say, it had some suggestions of like having carriers that are strung across the the chest and that protect it. And sometimes maybe it looks like a little animal or something of the sort if they're using technology in that way in the outdoors. So you want to protect it and think about ruggedness and some of those things. There also are some technologies that are more kid-friendly, like the GPS kind of watch, so you know your child is at all times and such. So just think about protecting those. Extending the experience. So you may be coming inside and looking at the pictures and the video recordings and the voice memos and notes that were taken down and such, and continue living through those experiences in the indoors through what we've done. We could be collecting and storing observations with it. Also going back to that protecting the equipment outdoors, it can be wearable and hands-free. They don't have to be holding it to be using it all the time, except when they're entering data and such. And then use mobile senses and all the technology features. We have a lot of technology that we can use in lots of different ways. I don't know that there's an app out there that really does all of these, but as many of them as we can get. And I actually am kind of excited to see where this could take us to inspire people to create some additional apps for us. So there are different types of apps that were suggested in this article. A few of them suggest some programs that educate children about nature, such as reading, viewing, and gaming. Apps that encourage the locating of nature experiences for children, families, and adults. Apps that enhance that nature experience. And then apps that actively encourage the transition from indoors to getting us outdoors. So just kind of different categories. And then I'll share some examples of each of these, and then I will go ahead and share some of my picks that I probably use the most and that I enjoy. So these are just different types of apps that educate children about nature. So Marco Polo Ocean, it's really kind of like a simulation to learn about the ocean. Habitat the game, you're trying to keep an endangered polar bear alive. So you're learning some environmental principles through that. Grow Garden, this actually had really good reviews. There is a cost to it, but it's for younger kids that teaches the principles of organic gardening. Weather Duck, it's a weather app that shares about the weather conditions and encourages children to see how they may need to be dressed for those weather conditions as well. And so cute little duck and what it's wearing, and when they don't want to wear the coat, but the duck is, maybe they will. And then Toka Nature, there are actually several different ones of these. This is another fee one, but children can create virtual forests and learn about animals that may be within the forest with that as well. So these are just some that are kind of more about that education side of nature. You wouldn't necessarily have to be outside to use any of these, I don't think, but it is part of that education aspect of all of it. Okay, and then there are apps that help us find nature experiences. All Trails is used by people across the United States and Canada, and it's really probably one of the most popular trail apps that people use. You could actually use it to map your walk that you've been on and such as well. It can calculate and store your figures and things as well, and to help you find things, the trailheads and maps and some of those things that you may not have otherwise. O-Ranger Park Finder is similar to that. It's a database with all kinds of information on parks, forests, wildlife refuges, and lakes and recreation areas, etc. And you can put your zip code in or use your location to go find things. Discover the Forest is actually a website you may have seen like on the side of the road, billboards sometimes for Discover the Forest. They've been doing things. It lets users search for different forests and parks, but then it also contains tips on preparing for the trips and activities for families in the forest. There had been like nature find and things that were going along with this. Those are not seeming to be updated, but Discover the Forest is going strong still with that. And then also the National Park Service. If you go to national parks very often, this is a great app. It is actually free, and there have interactive guides for all the different things and links to the news, events, the cams, amenities, trails, etc. I'm actually going to be out in the Western states this weekend, and so I went ahead to my national Park Service app, and I know that I don't get great reception sometimes in national parks, depending on where we are. So I just went ahead and opened up that app, and I went ahead and downloaded the guide for Zion National Park. I'll be staying near there, and so I can have all that information offline to help me as I go through that. I wouldn't necessarily say that this is something that I'd be using with the children, maybe my older children and teens. Tweens and teens may be taking more control over these things, but for us as adults, this helps us get outside with those as well. And then also geocaching.com. It's an online kind of hide and seek real world outdoor treasure hunting thing. I do geocaching with as young as 3, though younger children are often schlepped around with our children as we go geocaching as well. So, and then apps that enhance the nature experience. So some of these may be like identification apps, or things that help us understand the world around us once we are outside in nature. LeafSnap is a pretty common one where you can take a picture with it. It's really actually kind of fun. You can take a picture and see, it helps you go through, and it helps identify what the plant may be. And then you can record it, and then this iNaturalist, Seek by iNaturalist, both of these, they're similar to that in that you can record and share sightings of these, of different species, and you can help identify plants and animals by using the ID Please Help feature as well. And you can also see what people have been finding in different areas. So you can look for just your area in particular to see what other people have found. And some of this is actually used as kind of citizen scientist data that researchers may go back and say, oh, someone's found something here. And people have discovered like new species and things in places that were not expected through different aspects of this. Merlin Bird ID is one of my favorites. We may talk about it a little bit later, but if you don't have this, it is free. I would really recommend downloading it. There are a lot of different uses for it. It kind of goes step by step for helping identify the birds. Not always 100%, but you can upload a picture and it will help identify from that. You can also use the app to kind of record what's happening with the sounds around you, and it will tell you what birds they're hearing as part of that. So it will identify the birds around you by call. And then you can look up those birds right there in the app and learn more about the birds based on having identified it from the call. And it goes through step by step. It will record where you are, the date, and then you can choose like what size it is, what colors you see, and then what it was doing. Was it flying? Was it swimming? Was it perched on a tree, etc.? And then with the size, location, colors, its activity, it kind of gives you a range of birds. So instead of having, you know, a list of birds a mile long, it has a shorter amount of birds that you can go through and see which one might have been yours. I would say that this is a good introductory one. And then as you get more into birding, if you're not already, there are more specific apps like eBird and some of those things that may be helpful as well, and to record those things. And it's kind of neat to say, yep, that's my bird, or just to browse them, or just to practice and learn some of the bird calls. So we've used it in lots of ways with children in the vehicle. If they're old enough to use some of those features while I'm driving, they can be operating an app and sharing more with us about the birds that we may be seeing around us. Nature's Notebook is kind of neat because you can record the changes that you see at a specific site. It could be a backyard, a neighborhood, or local park. I've used it through the Orchard School down in Indianapolis. They have an account with Nature's Notebook where throughout the year, I believe it's in conjunction with Indiana Phenology Project, where you can record information about it. And so information is kind of built up throughout the year to see those seasonal changes and things of the sort. So that's kind of a specific thing that you can set up for a specific site, which is just kind of neat. And then also the Lost Ladybug Project. It's a website that lets children kind of track an at-risk species, and they can see how they can learn how to submit photos of ladybug sightings, and then also helps track those beetle populations and such. A few others, Audubon Bird Guide is another one. Picture This, Picture Insect, similar identification types of things. I know that our local parks is doing like a wildflower bio blitz this spring as kind of one of their programs. And as we go about on our hikes and walks in our county, we can use an app to record our sightings of different wildflowers on our phones, and all of that information will get connected with other users of this particular project to aggregate, put all of that information together, so we kind of have a picture of when the wildflowers are blooming in our space, which is kind of cool if you want to go see something particular. And then there are some apps that encourage transition from indoors to outdoors. These are kind of some basic ones, of course, like a GPS that helps you get where you need to go and such. But then digital cameras, a phone camera. There's some scavenger hunts kind of with that. With this Plums photo hunt, it is geared towards younger children, and it's kind of like a digital scavenger hunt, and it will actually read the words out loud for the children. And then, so like it may say rocks, and then the child is supposed to go find some rocks and take a picture of it, and then it will store it in that app to kind of put together a compilation of the scavenger hunt that you've done, the photo hunt of the things outside. And Agents of Nature, Agents of Discovery, it's probably just Agents of Discovery, but we have used that at different sites, but it is kind of like a challenge series, and it is site specific. So not every place has something, but I did find something just kind of generic for Indiana about Smokey the Bear and forest fires. And he leads you on a challenge within this app in the outdoors of learning more about fire safety and such. But you can also create your own type of challenge for that space as well. And then I just kind of want to talk about tools a little bit. I find that as an adult in the outdoor space, I'm using all kinds of my technology tools and encouraging my children as they get older. You know, one of them, I was driving today, we were bringing some of his friends home, and I was like, why don't you look up on the calendar this next week to see if we can schedule something, but then also look at the weather. What's the weather going to be like that afternoon, to see if that's going to be a good time to come to have kids over or not. There are several different weather apps, WeatherBug, the Weather Channel, even just weather on your phone. You may have a particular one that you like. If you find one that's really kid-friendly, feel free to share that in the chat. It'd be helpful. The All Trails I kind of mentioned before, but that helps find those things. And then our digital camera. And speaking of trails, I oftentimes will take a picture at the kiosk when I start a trail. You know, it has the trail map oftentimes on that kiosk. I will take a picture at the kiosk so that when I am out with a toddler on the trail and I'm not sure how much longer it's going to be, or if I'm off track, I can go back and look at that trail map picture. And also, like, my GPS or map feature within my phone can also help me find my way back to the parking lot sometimes if I need it as well. Thank goodness for technology and helping us in those situations sometimes. And also might take digital videos of some of the things that we're seeing, capturing moments of the play that's happening, and also voice recording. So oftentimes with my children or children that I'm working with at a school, after we've had an experience in the outdoors, I might just go ahead and turn on the voice memo and have them share what the important insights were, what they learned, what they experienced, or just how they enjoyed the outdoors with that as well. I mentioned the calendar, just scheduling time for being outside. There are also a myriad of podcasts. I have one called Loose Parts Nature Play that has a lot of different information about getting outside. But there are also, there's something called the Walking School Curriculum. And this has shorter podcasts geared for children. And the intent is that they can go take a walk outdoors and listen to this podcast while they are walking, which I think is super cool. So the Walking Curriculum is what it's called. And it's just another way to get outside while they're learning. It's not an either or, it's a yes and we can do both. Compass and maps, I mentioned those a little bit. Big Magnify is one thing. And actually, I do this just with my camera to zoom in on things to see them larger. But this Big Magnify app will make things 8 times larger than it is. So if you want to get up close details to see what a butterfly wing or something like that looks like, you can use that. Also, the flashlight. I don't know how many times I turn on my flashlight to see what's inside a log, or if we're in the forest and looking underneath something, what's underneath there, what's in that hole. But that flashlight I've used many, many times when I'm outside. I also use the notepad feature to write down bird lists, to record observations and things of the sort. The timer, and I have it on my watch as well, but you can use it on your phone. I have had some children in the past that don't want to go outside, don't want to hike, don't want to do this. And oftentimes I'll just say, let's try it for 15 minutes and see how we do. And so I'll put a silent alarm on my phone for 15 minutes. But usually once we've started that 15 minutes, they're totally engaged. And, it's an hour before they start recognizing, oh yeah, we weren't going to do this for that long. But just trying it for 15 minutes can be very helpful. Some people also use timers to record how much time they're outside. So they may have a goal for how long they want to be outside for the year. And so they use that timer to help track that. Google Earth and our Google Maps, you can turn on different features to see like the trees in green space. You can actually use that website to go and see, are there some pockets that we might want to explore nearby? Are there green spaces near our home or school that are on public property that we could go visit? So I know that people have found all kinds of neat little nooks and crannies nearby by using that feature and being open to the different types of green spaces that may be near there. Then GPS trackers. There are different ones. There's one phone called like Gab, I think. And then just call and they can, and it tracks where they are with the GPS tracker. So some parents feel more comfortable having that with their children. And then also just search engines. We use search engines to look up information all the time, and finding like YouTube videos of like a pileated woodpecker or something of the sort, that can just be very satisfying, I guess you could say. As far as my picks for different apps, I mentioned Merlin Bird ID earlier, and I shared how to use that. I would say that's one of the ones that we use frequently all the time. Skyview Light is another one as well, and it is a free version of like what's in the night sky. So that's kind of neat. You can take it out even when there's like daytime and see what would be up out there past what we can see with our eyes. And then at night, it can help you find constellations. And when the big star, which really is a planet oftentimes in the wintertime as it comes out earlier than the stars, is there, it'll help us and learn more information about that. And I just use the free version, but it shows those constellations and such. There is an app, this one does cost money for journaling and tracking time at the 1,000 hours outside. Some people make a goal to get 1,000 hours outside each year. And with this, you can track kind of highlights of what happened, how long you did. There's a timer within the app, and then you can also upload pictures to go with it. So it kind of puts it all together in documentation of what all we've done. Then also those gamification aspects, the Pokemon Go. Well, I don't do that. I love the technology and how it's getting people outside, but I do use geocaching. And for me, geocaching has brought us to so many places that we would have had no idea was there. And we've just been delighted with the nature hunts that we've gone on, even when we've been, traveling or any of those things, or just need some time out. I'll grab some of my children's friends and we'll just go geocaching. And even when our kids were younger, we would take them as well. It's not something that we do all the time, every day, but we kind of go in and out of cycles with it. And we've even been to some geocaching conventions and such. And we did it back in the day when we had to print papers out and put information on a GPS and such. So having the apps now, so much easier than printing all the information and such out. I did also want to share some helpful Facebook groups. There are various Facebook groups that I use on the regular that have been very helpful for me just in learning about nature, especially specific to Indiana. So ICAN Learn Outdoors, this is just a group of educators and parents that it's not super active, but just want to share resources and ideas for getting outside with children in some way. There is a specific Indiana 1,000 Hours Outside group. There is a national one and such as well. But the one that's specific to Indiana is kind of nice to find more people in our region that are just interested in getting outside. You don't have to do the full 1,000 hours. There's no like entry requirement or anything of the sort. And then there's all kinds of different regional nature groups in Indiana. We have done a webinar last year on that. And with that, it links to several regional nature groups on the ICAN website. So just search up the ICAN website and look for regional nature groups, and it will share a list of different ones. So that gives me ideas of things to go do, and also a way to connect and meet up with other people that may be wanting to go outside as well. This one, Indiana Nature, in Nature, this is led by a couple of great naturalists, a real appreciation of nature, conservation, ecology, natural sciences. I would say that they are pretty strict on their rules of being ecologically sound. And it's very informative, but they're not going to sugarcoat things if it's not ecologically sound, if that makes sense. But I have learned a lot from it, and I just have to recognize that that's part of the structure of that group. Birding in Indiana is another group where you can learn things about birds throughout the year and see beautiful pictures, but also where to find things. There are also county groups often for birding. I know I live up in Elkhart County, and so just yesterday, actually maybe Tuesday, a Western tanager, which is not a bird that we would typically have around here, showed up in someone's backyard. And so they shared that in the Elkhart County group. And then people with information, I guess, about where to stand and all those kinds of things to not disturb the bird or the house that it was found at. People were able to go see a bird that's pretty rare for here. And I know that through those county groups, I've been able to go out and see birds like that too. People would let us know, hey, there's a scoter at the Goshen Dam Pond or something like that. And so then we could go visit those places and see what was there as well. I would also say that Indiana Native Plant Society, I've been a member of that for several years. The Facebook group, it is also a membership thing if you'd like to do that. But that has really helped me see the cycle of plants throughout the seasons. And just by people posting pictures and things, I can identify some of the plants now, a lot more of the plants than I did at first, and answer some of the questions even sometimes. But that has been neat for me to see the cycle of plants throughout the time. Indiana mushrooms, there are so many different mushrooms out there that are interesting. For us, it's kind of middle of morel season, but there are other mushrooms out there, and they don't even have to be edible to be interesting and to get information about them from the Indiana Mushrooms Group. There's also Hoosier Herpetological Society. So this is like amphibians and reptiles, otherwise known as herps. And they have meetups sometimes, but then also just good information and help learning about herps and such as well. So these are some of the Facebook groups that have been helpful for me. There are more. If you just like pretty pictures of nature in Indiana, there are groups just for that. If you like hiking, one group that I belong to, my kids don't come with me, but Hiker Babes, they have different regions throughout the state. I'm in the northern group. Hiker Babes Northern Indiana, I think is what it's called. But that's a way for me to find other people that are going out hiking and spend time with them. So I've really enjoyed my times with that. So options, and then there are backpacking groups and any of those kinds of things that you may want to get interested in. There are also other kinds of technology that may be interesting to kind of explore as part of this. Virtual reality, the goggles, you can take like a trip through the Grand Canyon through this virtual reality world that feels like you were there. Not all of us can go to the Grand Canyon, but we may have these devices and be able to experience what it would be like. They have lots of different simulations as well. That could be interesting. Trail cameras, they're, $30 to $50 or so, but that helps you capture what kind of critters are in your space at night. So some people will put like a scent station, a place of sand with some scent in the middle, put a camera so that it's facing that scent station. The scent and it's usually like some types of wild animal urine. I know, really exciting. But there are places to get that, like hunting stores and such. But they'll come and get closer to the smell to see what's happening. Then you can see their tracks on the sand and have pictures of what came to explore. And that's just a neat way to see what's happening there. Nest cams. So there are various places with nest cams throughout the state to see what the bald eagles are doing. It's neat to see the eggs hatching and the babies and the moms and dads coming and such. Metal detectors. I know one of my son's friends came over with a metal detector earlier this month, and they spent hours outside just looking around, finding what things they could find of metal with that. So it doesn't have to be handheld technology, even though metal detectors usually still handheld, but it can be technology to explore in different ways. I did put up a picture of drones here. I would not use these necessarily with younger children, but it does give just an aerial view, a different perspective than what we normally get. A caution with these, most parks have regulations about using drones, so you have to find the right space to use it, but it does give that aerial view and see. It's like you're up in a plane looking down at what it looks like. Solar cars are kind of neat to explore too. They often have kits that you can use with that as well. And then I just want to share a few other things that are kind of a little different. You might have group scheduling apps like the Facebook groups. GroupMe is one group that I see. A Carmel group for kind of these nature, family nature groups is very active. Hey, we're going to go meet up at the park. It helps people that don't want to be on like Facebook all the time, and they can just get a notification specifically about getting outside. Remind is another app to just share that information. And many classrooms use different apps like Hi Mama or Seesaw or Storybook to capture some of those pictures and anecdotes and statements that are being met, voice recordings even, to share with the parents of what's going on with that. I've also seen QR codes since cameras now read the QR code and can take you to the website. I've seen QR codes incorporated into signage different places, and then it can take people to give them a tip or information, share a sighting, or lead them to a sign-up sheet or something of the sort. Beanstack is something that I've been seeing libraries use. So our local library is using Beanstack to have audiobooks available that you can listen to while you're hiking and record the time and the places that you're going, and be able to explore in a different way with the outdoors. So also wanted to share a couple of apps as far as outdoor safety go. There is one called First Aid by the American Red Cross. It's a way just to get basic information that you may need in an emergency. There's also an offline survival manual. So if you were stuck someplace where you don't have resources and such, you don't have to, if you've already had it preloaded, you wouldn't have to be online to be able to use the materials that are there. And then, of course, emergency calls, if you need that, 911 would be there. And then there are also, you can use some of the same apps that we use to look for poisonous or venomous organisms, plants to be aware of and such. So I just wanted to think about safety a little bit. With that, we need to think about keeping children safe with technology. A lot of our phones will use geotagging on our photos, and so it may have information in the data meta information that includes like the location of your house and such. So you just kind of want to be aware of what information you're putting out there if you're sharing pictures all over the world, and avoid sharing those locations, like a child in front of the school that they go to and sharing their name with it. And of course, we can use privacy filters and things like that. And also just wanted to share that it's, reiterate, it's okay to set limits with technology and children. And oftentimes we'll see different behaviors if we take a technology break for a little while and some of those things. Check the privacy of the apps and the organizations that we may be using. I know as I downloaded some new apps in preparation for this, that it would tell me explicitly what information was being shared and used and how it was done. If child has opportunity to contact with others, know about it and monitor if that's going to be happening. And I'd say that you don't need that to be happening with younger children, and continue monitoring and watching what's happening with older children. And sometimes we need to put the apps and the technology away as needed. We don't have to have it out all the time. So just kind of reiterating that. And then I'd love to open it up to you. Are there any apps or technology that you found interesting or might like to try? This would be a great time to go ahead and come off of mute and share something that piqued your interest or additional apps that have been helpful for you. So we'd love to hear from you and what you think. Oops, sorry about that. I was just making sure I was really recording. You're welcome to use the meeting chat or unmute and share as well. So either way would be great.
I've used some of them that you've mentioned, the Merlin for sure. And a picture of this and a lot of those identifying apps. There's some of these others I'd like to check out.
Yeah, I'll try to like do screenshots or pictures of some of the slides here so that will be available too, and you don't have to go through the whole recording and such to see some of those lists. And you might have written some down and such. Were there any in particular that sounded interesting?
Well, I kind of looked at some of the, as you were talking, I kind of tried to see if I could download some, and I'm having trouble finding some of them. So I'm not quite, I just went to the app store on my phone. So where are you finding these things? Are they
if it's only a website, I try to go ahead and put that it was just a website. Otherwise, I was able to find them on an iOS device, but we know that not all apps are supported the same on Android or iOS devices. And so to some degree, we have to kind of watch and see what's available in the different device realm that we use.
Yeah, I'm definitely an Android. So but I can look around and see what I can find, and we have iPads at school. So,
so
I mean, maybe be able to find them on there also. So I was just interested in maybe like perusing them.
Yes,
seeing what would be helpful.
And some of them may not be helpful. I think that's part of our job as parents and educators, is to kind of weed through like, this isn't really working. Or, and like that list that I shared of like the ideal app kind of thing, I think we've got some room to grow, and there's a whole untapped market for people that want to explore coding some apps for us. But I don't know.
Yeah, that kind of crossed my mind too, as we were thinking like, who can do this kind of work?
And it has gotten a lot easier to create an app. And I've seen some people just make an app for their location too, like a children's museum or something like that. So you can kind of make like a picture book of what you've been doing there. You can make a picture book of something else. And also we can take the pictures that we've done outside and then bring those inside and create a classroom book with those pictures and include the children with their words as part of it and such too, and print it and or have a digital copy as well. And I didn't share this here, but one of the apps that I've used for storytelling with children in the past is Chatterpix. Um,
Okay.
yeah, I don't know if you've seen that, but you can take a picture of whatever and draw like a mouth on it, and then
Oh,
it
I have
moves its
seen
mouth
those.
with the
Uh,
story that the child is recording.
Oh,
So
that's great.
yeah.
Yeah,
All
well,
kinds of fun things.
we did make books. I mean, photo books with pictures from the classrooms for the classrooms, but I didn't even dawn on me to go flip it to the outdoors.
Yeah,
I mean, duh.
you could do, like, if you have a garden, you could go and document some of the garden
Yeah,
vegetables and things
yeah.
that are growing there, or even the play that's happening.
The nature play space, the activities that they do, the family nights that we have,
Yeah,
just had, and then take those pictures and put them in a book. I mean, you can
yeah,
find them on sale pretty cheaply. I mean, you're talking $11 for an 8.5 by 11 if you
yeah.
can find it on sale.
Yes. And
Yeah,
for me, they just always send that out when I am overtapped and don't have enough time to put it together.
exactly.
But if I
Exactly.
have it ready and waiting for that
Yep,
sale,
yep.
that would be
And
perfect.
when the sale comes, then boom, you can just download them and go.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a really good idea.
So, and then having those out so that the
Right.
families, and
Okay.
if you bring books outside in your space, having them be
Yeah.
able to see that documentation of using that
Mm-hmm.
space can be really
Mm-hmm.
powerful too. So,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of different things with that.
And also maybe a little inspiring from other,
Yes.
what they've seen other kids do. Who knows?
Yeah, most definitely.
Yeah.
And same documentation with loose parts and such too, since I talk about that a
Mhm.
lot. So we can continue with our conversations, but I do just want to kind of let you know what's coming up. Nature Play Days, of course, in June. And at the very tail end of that, we'll have a conversation for our summer ICAN Play 30 and the Beyond Ecophobia chat. If you haven't signed up to host a Nature Play Day, we encourage you to, and also start reading. And I'll put in the event for this, if it's not already started, I will go ahead and create an event and then share a link to an article. There is an article by David Sobel similar to this, but not the full book. And the book itself is actually really small and only like 80 pages. I read it in a plane trip one time, so it's not too bad.
Mhm.
But you can also just read an article or just show up and converse with us as well. Thank you all for being here. I'm going to go
Thank
ahead
you.
and stop my share in the recording, and then go ahead and people want to share